work the same job and the same hours. And she learned that her company is sexist and they are don't support gender equality and they pay females lower. And she did not want to be a part of this company and help them when they have so bad moralistics. And she just wanted to quit so she could help our future to be more equal and males and females be the same rather than a male being higher.
This is already such an inspiring story, but even more than that, it seemed like such a big problem because I feel like the wage gap should be a problem that should be addressed so much more and given more importance because not just to our friend, but so many other women out there are being treated exactly like this. And it's like nothing is being put effort to change that.
Yeah, I completely agree. So many of us think now that's 2021, soon to be 2022, all of these major issues, racism, the wage gap, it's all solved, right? But it's actually not. For every $1 a white man makes, of women only makes around 62 cents. That is around a 40% to 50% difference. So basically, if someone's making $100,000, the woman's just making around $60,000 for the same amount of work, same amount of hours, and she might even be putting in more work and more hours.
After hearing your statistics and the way you put it of only 62,000 when a man makes 100,000, it makes it sound really excessive. And I feel bad for these women all over the world, genuinely, because they have to work so much harder just to make how much a man would. Like, how many more hours do they have to put just to get this money? And it would be really hard for them in life to take care of their family, especially if they were single moms.
I completely agree with this. I feel as of right now, although we are helping with this gender gap, and although there are a lot more solutions that the government has taken and a lot more steps that the government has taken to solve this issue, I feel as if society is still dragging this problem on. And although the government is trying their best and is sending out many laws and many bills to be passed so that both men and females are paid equally and the same, I feel as if society is still treating them as two completely different people and are treating males as if they are higher and have a better status than females when really they're both the same and they both do the same exact job. And sometimes females even do it better.
Yeah, but there's so much that the government can do. They've tried to set laws that restrict companies, but at the end of the day, the companies are the people that pay, and the companies have very well paid lawyers and the best in the world. So it's very hard for an average person to go sue a company for such a big act. So it's more of the society than the government. The government's trying, but there's only so much they can do.
Exactly. That's basically what I was trying to say. The government is taking many actions, but I feel as if society still has to help this issue. And we can do that by easily just protesting and using our rights to really go against this issue. One question that I had was that compared to the 1900s and past history, how far do you think we've come in helping ensure that we don't really have a wage gap anymore and we're like lowering gender inequality? And what do you think we can do to help further this and make sure that this really doesn't happen in the future?
We didn't do much of an increase because according to statistics, the gender wage gap will not close till 2093. And this is a lot of time. It's like a good 70 years. So it obviously shows we have so much more to do. Obviously, we did a little, but in my point of view, I don't think this is anywhere close to enough because it is affecting so many humans' lives.
Exactly. It's like our entire society is obviously has progressed so much from back then. But the stereotype that men are always going to have the more power to be able to work more or have a higher wage, that stereotype definitely hasn't left our society yet. And if it did, then we wouldn't have this problem to begin with. Overall, I think is it more of how much their whole performance is too, or the whole society? Because does their performance really affect the way that this whole wage gap problem is happening?
It's
Oh, I'm
not
sorry.
entirely even the wage gap. There's also the problem with what type of job you get. For example, the higher paying, the better jobs are not easily given, and you have to work a bit harder. So if you go to a fast food restaurant, you might see many women there because those are on the lower end jobs and people don't really care about that. So that's one major problem. It's not only the wage gap, but it's also the type of jobs that they're getting.
I think it's that both of these problems are caused on the mindset of the society. As Aditi stated before, that the society needs to do this and that, but the society can't do stuff until they change their mindset. Because many people's mindsets are still that males are better and women can't do what males can do due to our past history where women were restricted to only be able to take care of the family. So I personally think to move on forward and to stop this gender inequality as a whole, we the mindset of the society needs to change, because until then people won't do stuff that don't support their ideology.
I, I completely agree with this. And I feel as if, just like Kasika said, we really have to change what we're thinking. And I feel like that starts off with education. And as of right now, in our current society, how do you think education is progressing and really making kids understand that both men and females are supposed to be treated equally? And what do you think that education and children under the grades or children in the grades of K through 12 should be educated on this topic? And do you think we're doing enough to really educate them so that they don't really make the same mistakes that we're doing and implanting the same ideologies that have already been implanted in our head about the stereotypes between females and males?
You're personally not educating them enough, because when I was in school, like in elementary school, they were still divided by colors. This is kind of funny. It might not seem important, but they were girl colors and boy colors. And a girl couldn't like a boy color while a boy couldn't like a girl color. As we get older, we know none of these gender colors don't exist, but they are being implanted to kids of that age already super young. They are already showing a line between boys and girls. So obviously we're not doing enough at all. Like we're separating them with colors, toys, clothes.
Since the
Yeah,
beginning, it's always felt like men and women were separated when it came to little things like Hasika said, toys, clothes, colors. And if they were never separated, women wouldn't be hesitant to go for jobs that they really want. And they wouldn't have to settle for jobs that they know will get them maybe even average wage or less, because they know that if they go for a job that they might not be able to get, they'll lose the opportunity of a job that they already have and they have to settle for.
yep. Because of COVID, many women are getting fired because they're the first to go. Since the ideology now is that men do better work than women. So if you're gonna fire someone, why fire the better person? Why not just fire the worst person? So due to that, during COVID-19, a lot of women have been fired from their jobs and they're just sitting home now. And many people, women have also been forced to leave their jobs to go take care of the children.
Adding on to the COVID-19 issue, the wage gap between women and men have increased so much because of COVID-19, because the woman labor force participation is lower than it was 33 years ago. And this is a lot of time. And a lot of changes happened from 33 years ago to get where we are to decrease the gender wage gap. But we're just opening it more with COVID-19, which kind of sucks. But like we obviously need to do work, but as you said, women have to take care of their families and it isn't meant for some reason, but it's causing a lot of issues and it's opening up a bigger or making the problem way bigger than it should be.
Yes, adding on to that, I feel like with the COVID-19 pandemic, as you guys said before, this has really increased the gender wage gap. And I feel as if since a lot of the less important jobs have been laid off, such as many different people who work in health, such as fast food and many other things, which don't require as much work, I feel as if people are getting laid off. And this is mainly women because women mainly occupy these types of areas because they're considered to be a lot lower than males who have like the higher jobs, such as like CEOs, managers, executives, so much more. And this leads me to understand how although we are trying our best to really not make this happen, I feel as if stereotypes are just what is causing this. And how do you think stereotypes are really affecting different people's lives, especially females and males?
Stereotypes are definitely affecting the lives. For example, 45% of men don't even want to change the system because they still believe that men are better than women. So, in order for the system in the first place to change, we have to change what people believe and what they think.
Adding on to what Orion said, the 45% of men who don't want to change this is because they are benefiting. Human nature is a common thing about human nature is people try to benefit themselves. So if I'm not trying to be like gender inequality or anything, but if women were in that position and were benefiting from this gender wage gap, they wouldn't care about changing it either. And that's kind of also to take that if the roles were ever reversed, would women ever care to get men to inequality if they to equality if these roles were ever reversed?
Yeah, if they were reversed, it would be completely opposite. The men would be protesting everywhere to change this up. And I believe that first, if we just change the mindset, everything else could be changed.
I find this really interesting is because women are enraged by this fact that men don't care, but I don't think they realize that if they were in that position, they wouldn't care either. And it isn't just men's fault or anyone's fault. It's just the human nature. So I'm not trying to attack anyone, but this is the point of many people in our nation. I do not believe it's a fair point. I do believe we have to bring it to equality, but it's just to take something in for consideration because it's just interesting how someone like this, if the roles were reversed, everything could be so different or the exact same.
Yeah, we
Yup.
can say that once it is part of human nature to always be thinking about your own wage. And men can say that while they might feel bad for how less the wage can be for women and how they get, like Aryan said, almost like 40,000 less dollars yearly, if the roles were to be switched, they'd be acting and reacting the exact same way as women are right now because as it might not be affecting them in the position they are, when the positions get switched, they're going to have nothing left to do but work multiple jobs or have to quit jobs because of how their salary is so much less even after working the same hours.
Yup, it's kind of crazy. For every 3 months a man wakes, a woman has to work an extra 42 days just to make up that amount of money they lost, and 42 working days.
Adding on to this, just like you all said, I feel as if when the roles are reversed, I feel as if men are going to do exactly what females are doing right now. And right now, females are doing everything. They're trying to bring this up to the Supreme Court, get more bills passed, ensure that companies aren't able to do any of this and get away with it with extremely good lawyers, and are protesting for this. And I feel like if males were in the same position, they would do the exact same thing. And since all the roles are reversed, they would actually feel as if the women are getting the higher or better benefits and are getting the advantages. And it would actually make everyone understand what the opposite gender was going through at one point, which I think would actually make them understand more and would eventually lead to how males are actually able to understand what females are going through right now.
Yup. And the majority, there's actually a bright spot in all of this. For the younger women, females around 16 to 24, the difference is actually just for every $1 a man makes, it's only 94 cents. So the major difference gap is between the older ages. So this shows some bright hope because as those women get older, maybe the wage gap will also start to decrease.
I think you got this wrong, but it's actually when women get older, the wage gap starts to decrease because when women are younger, they get jobs like working at Dunkin' Donuts or like Starbucks, which is still unfair to them. But it's when women are actually getting older, it decreases because they can get more legitimate jobs, such as like working at a company rather than working at like a waitress. But
Even
sorry, you can go.
okay, even today, all these kids are growing up learning that the women and the men wage gap, like the women is always meant to be working at home or a smaller job in any way compared to the men, or and that's the problem to begin with, because not even the wage gap, but how everything is separated from the beginning, and how the government says they would do something to help it. But so far, we've made the smallest progress, even to begin with. And it seems like there's always going to be the separation of wage gap from beginning to end. And nothing's really changed with that.
There's so much the government can do. I don't entirely believe it's the government's fault. It's more the society's fault, in which like what people believe. If people started believing different, the wage gap would be decreasing tremendously.
I don't completely agree with you in a way because obviously the society has its mindsets and all, which causes it. But if you look into the government itself is sexist. Like, we didn't have one female president. We don't have that many senators or representatives that are women. If you watch like debates or like in like the live TVs of what happens in those houses, there are like 3, 4 women. So I believe that can also be the problem. There aren't enough women to represent all the women in this politics and everything. I believe the government can potentially do more because they can technically make laws and so much and like take control of this problem. They obviously can't change the mindset of people, but they can like put control into this lower saying like if they work the same, making a law that says if they work the same job, they have to have the same pay.
Adding on to this, I feel as if the government can also do a bit more, such as through education. As I said earlier, what the government can do is they can implant that teachers have to teach at least for 3 weeks or have to have a specific academic unit talking about the different ways that men and females are equal, and they should talk about jobs, and they should talk about colors, and they should talk about everything that they're taught is separated between them, and should say that anyone can like anything regardless of their gender, and that can slowly reduce the mindset of having both female and male separation and having gender inequality, and can really help the future that way.
That is a great idea to start fueling. We have to start teaching them from young so when they're older, their mindsets wouldn't be like that. Like when they grow up, they won't have this mindset of colors and all, and then they'll just all be into one equality and all.
Yup, but the the gender gap will not even be fully closed till 2093. So that's still another 50 plus years. And by that time, it's not even fully closed, it's partially. So we're still going to make progress, but it's going to take a lot of time, maybe even a couple of centuries until we change the mindset to the point where it's 100% each. Until like 2021, 2024, 51, the gap is still going to be around the same numbers. So are we moving upwards? Yes, but it's at a super slow pace, and we need to do some stuff to fix this.
Adding on to that, some of the solutions that we can do to slowly start preventing this from happening, and maybe even at one point, even if it's a few centuries later, have an equal ratio of men and female pay. I think that we should start off with one, protesting against the government and do absolutely everything that we can and use the rights that we are given to completely go against the government in a peaceful way and make sure that people are able to understand what is going on. We could also spread awareness through places such as social media and even through posters, but mainly social media, as that's where a lot of people go on right now. And just through spreading it through social media, you're able to educate others, and they're able to spread that awareness to many more people. And this will get the word out much faster and more efficiently as well. And also, in general, we should just start educating the ones who are younger than us, because they are our future generation. And if we start now, we're able to help the future generation and possibly overcome this whole idea of the gender wage gap.